Boom, 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 boom. Oh
The
yeah.
signature move.
Yes. What if everywhere you went to work, you just bust through the door and start dancing? You know, how would that change the environment? How are you doing?
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to talk with you today.
Yes.
Um, our listeners may not know it, but we've been talking for about the last 3 hours as
Mhm.
we prep for so many exciting things that are coming y'all's way. Should we, since it's you and I today, should we
Mhm.
just go ahead and do the intro and dive
Yeah.
in?
Let's do it. I was thinking about diving. I wasn't thinking about diving into the podcast, but I'm ready. Okay. I am Shannon Mitchell. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, the founder of Shalo Glow, an all natural handmade skincare company. I am a champion for your self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week for intentional conversations about how to be wise in business and relationships and wellness. Like, how do we do this?
All of it. Yes.
Right?
Oof. It's a lot. It's a lot. And today, to give you the definition, we're going to go ahead and talk about it. We're talking about financial wellness. And our Women Connected in Wisdom definition is financial wellness is an intentional approach to your relationship with money as a tool. It includes stability with current finances, increasing positive financial behaviors like budgeting, reducing debt, saving, and investing. Financial wellness incorporates knowledge and skills that helps to change behavior, reduce financial stress, and creation of a strategic financial plan to reach desired financial goals.
Mm, it's a
Mhm.
mouthful.
Yeah. And this is really, for me, when we talk about maintaining wellness, right? How do you do it? Financial wellness was one of those categories that was like screaming at me, like, hey, you are not consistently taking care of what you need to take care of. When I started with the credit card, I said, you know what? I'm only going to buy gas on it. I'm only going to buy what I need and make sure I have the money to immediately pay for it. And I did for a while. And then I bailed an X out on the credit card, and it's
Mm,
still sitting there to this day, which is why I'm working all these hours. And we're working on it. Now I use it as a tool and it's different. But I said, I used to be wiser. How did
mhm.
younger me operate more wisely with money, and what happened? And that is the shift that showed me that I need to maintain wellness. It's not just enough to be wise and to know all these things. You have to act. There has to be action behind it. So that's what I think
Right.
about.
And you
Yes.
know what I'm going to say to you? What I say to my clients and my
Yes.
friends is
Mhm.
be gentle with yourself
Of course.
because yes, your younger self may have had a handle on it,
Yes.
and what we've been living through the last couple of years is
Mhm.
unprecedented. And so
Crazy.
there may be a need for a checkup. There
Mm.
may be a need for an I kind of call them a financial audit, right?
Mhm.
Or check in with yourself because also, life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. Sometimes relationship status change, job
Mhm.
statuses change, the world changes,
Mhm.
inflation, things I was just reading an article today that I'd love for us to talk about
Okay.
because it was this very thing. I'm just going to give you the title and we'll put it in the show notes.
Okay.
But it was worried you're mismanaging your money. Give yourself
Mhm.
a financial checkup in 7 simple steps. You know me, I love a good resource that's like, do this, do this, do
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
And this is written, it just came out today, and it
Okay.
was written by Sharon Epperson.
Mm.
And so basically she's saying it's time for a checkup because of inflation, because summer's wrapping up, kids are going back to school, like all
Yeah.
that impacts what we're doing with our money, right?
Mhm.
Especially as women. So the first thing she said is, I thought this was interesting. Number one, find your personal inflation rate. You should
Mm.
figure out how the impact of inflation and rising rates is doing on your budget, right? And she also gives some really cool links in there about top tips to save on back to school shopping, and major travel costs fell in July. So we won't talk about those. There are links in this article, but we'll link to it in our show notes.
Yeah.
Um, but she says, even though the inflation is at a 40-year high, we don't all spend money, the same amount of money on the same things. Isn't that the truth? Like,
Mhm.
let's pause right there. What are you allowed to spend money on, Shannon?
Ooh, I was reading your chapter earlier, so I have your answer in the front of my mind. I'm allowed to spend money on, let's see, food too. Like if I know
Mm-hmm.
I need to eat or something, I'll treat myself, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Clothes. I like
Mm-hmm.
clothes and I like books too.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I
I
don't know
do
if I
like
put
books.
books in the chapter. I can't remember that, but I know food and flowers were the two things I talked
Think
about
you
in the
did.
shower.
I
And I
think that was
probably
the
put
3rd thing.
books. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody that's ever helped me move knows that.
Mhm. And when I was moving, I said, "I have all these books. I was supposed to read the books," and I had a
Right?
bookshelf full of books that I had not read yet, so I will say
Right?
yes, books
Okay. So
and
it says
information.
how to do this, how to check your personal inflation rate is to gather
Okay,
your bills and bank statements to see what you've spent on food, housing, gas, entertainment, apparel, education, other items for the last 12 months. So, like,
okay.
you may have done this before, but the last 12 months has been different because of inflation being higher. And
Mm.
then you calculate it, and she gives you a complete, like, check. She gives you a link that you can click on in this article, but you
Okay.
add up your monthly spending for the last month and what you spent on those same goods and services a year ago.
Mhm,
So, boy, this is some detailed work. So, for those of y'all that aren't detailed, I'm one of those.
mhm,
Like, light a candle, get your
mhm.
favorite beverage, block
Yes.
out some time,
Get
put
yourself
on your
comfortable.
favorite music. Like,
Mhm,
when I'm
mhm,
doing financial kind of stuff, I like either classical or a little
mhm.
jazz, but nothing that's going to distract me,
Right.
right?
I like a little lo-fi.
Oh, nice. Yeah, good
Yeah.
beat going on.
Mhm,
She says subtract your total spending from July of 2021 to from July of 2022, and you
mhm.
divide that difference by your monthly expenses. Boy, we're getting really into the weeds. Sorry. We're going to put this in the show notes. And the result of that equation is your personal inflation rate. So
Okay.
she says
That
it's
makes sense, though.
right? She said it's the actual number is not really the point of it. The
Mhm.
point is you should review your expenses to see what you're spending and what you can cut out, reduce, or negotiate to a lower rate.
Right. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't wanna cut you off. What were you gonna say?
No, I just can guarantee food has been like, because I've had everybody home. That just
Yeah.
changed because the youngest
Mhm,
just went back to college and the
mhm,
the oldest is about to. But having four now adults in the
mhm,
house all
mhm.
summer, boy, that I can tell is going to be a huge difference from
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
But I think it's important too, right? If we talk about, I know when we talk about occupational wellness, right now we're talking
Hmm.
about millennials jumping from job to job, right?
Hmm.
But before that, if we were staying in the same place and we have the same income, if my expenses are changing, well, no wonder stuff feels a little shaky. It's not because my
Right.
valuable time that I'm spending at work isn't being appreciated. It's not stretching as far as it did last year because it now takes $120 a month for gas when before it was half that. When I bought
Right.
my car 2015, I filled up the Honda, $25. Now it's double
50.
that.
Yep.
Exactly.
I
Yep.
just had that conversation at the gas pump the other day,
Mhm.
and they're coming down,
Mhm.
right? The gas prices
Right.
are coming down,
They are.
but for the last 6 months or more, they've been
Yeah.
high.
And I
And so, yeah.
for me, it's just important to realize, okay, so gas went up, bread went up. How are we going to change our menu or change our traveling patterns so that we can still meet the budget? It might mean we're not going out to hang out as much. We might stay home and still spend the time so you get what you need, but you're not spending the extra because the budget still needs to stay the same. Being intentional like that has really helped me communicate what I need to my community, whether it's at work and hey, this time
Mhm.
shifted, I need to do this, or it's us and our workflow. This is now the consideration, and this is still how we can reach the goal.
Right?
Yeah.
You kind of spoke to number 2 that she says in this article. She says, avoid lifestyle creep. Boy, I'm guilty of this one. Are you
Me too.
ready? You may have gotten a slight raise or moved to a new job, making a little more money. So why not treat yourself to takeout most nights of the week? Or you're working so hard you don't have time to cook, or you're on deadline for a book. She didn't say that, but
Oh, okay.
if those meals and delivery costs have
Yeah.
doubled your food cost, but your
Mhm,
take home pay hasn't kept pace, you may be the victim of lifestyle creep
mhm,
as the cost of your lifestyle increases faster than your income. So you want to see what expenses you can reduce or cut out, like membership, subscriptions, or
mhm.
maybe even travel sometimes,
And for that, I'm picky. And not
right?
to pick apart this article because I think it's great, and I
No,
think
I
she's
give me
on
pushback.
with on with this
Yeah.
stuff, right? But I wouldn't say victim. Those are the decisions that we have power that we make, right? And that's what we talk
Ah,
about in Women Connected
yeah,
in Wisdom, like sorting and separating what's yours, what you can control, what you can't. And me eating out most days, I would love to. I like the experience, That's why it's
right,
such a big thing. You like to be catered to.
right,
You don't have to cook, don't have to shop. We get it. But what I love about going to the farmer's market, buying my own groceries, I know that this $100 is gonna divide every time I eat. So, here's 2 meals and 3 meals, and by 17
right.
and 25, I'm feeling pretty good about my spending. But when you eat out, that multiplies it. So it's 3
Whew,
times however much plus a 20% tip for the food and
right,
hospitality industry, okay?
right, or
And,
more.
or more.
Yeah.
And that ends up adding up, of course.
Well, and I mean, I don't know about you lately, but
Yeah.
things that used to be $10 or $15 eating out are now 20 and 25. So
Mhm.
that's an inflation cost.
Yeah,
Because the restaurants have had to stay open and stay alive.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's the little thing, right? It feels
Mhm,
like in some ways we're being nickeled and dimed. It's not
mhm.
like huge purchases. It's just, but I hear what you're saying about that we're not victims of lifestyle creep, but
Right.
their lifestyle creep is probably
Yeah, it's
happening
a
if we're
thing.
not
Oh,
paying
absolutely.
attention. I
Yeah,
know it's happening in mine.
and I will also say there are things that might creep up on you. If you have an adjustable, interest rate, now that
Mm,
that's a creep. That's something else, That's not
that's a
something.
whammy.
That's that's a whammy, you know what I mean? So, yeah,
Right?
there's different things like that that absolutely they change and we should be paying attention to, which is why I love that step. Looking at your expenses once every year, and I like even that it's July to July and not exactly when taxes are due, so that you can get those numbers before the holidays, get them before tax season so you know what you're looking at and can be intentional going up until that time of the year.
Right. And I'm just going to say, as I read this article, y'all, I get a little overwhelmed by it just personally because and what I'm thinking in my head even as we're talking about this I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
how can I make this happen? And
Mhm.
I'm realizing you got to calendar it. Like
Mhm.
this
Mhm.
is not, I mean, maybe if you're CPA or your numbers and you love it, you're like, oh yay, let me go do this. I think in my head, ooh, what can I watch on Netflix instead?
Mhm.
I'm just being really honest,
No,
right?
that's honest. That's why
But
we're
it's
here.
like it's like, okay, I need to calendar this. I've
Yeah.
been saying I need to do it. I need to check in and do an audit. Because the
Yeah.
other thing that I know, and I'm sure she gets into it, we'll keep going on the article. But the
Yeah.
thing that trips me up sometimes is those subscriptions that I
Mhm.
don't know. Like I had one pop up, like I got this big old bill from, I was like, what the heck? I didn't, a lot of times I'll do electronic books. So like my a
Mhm.
subscription, and I'll be like, whoa, I bought more than I thought I did. But like this
Mhm.
time I was like, I haven't been buying anything. And it was a subscription that I thought was canceled. And all
Mhm.
of a sudden they wanted another $40. And it was like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, no, no, I haven't been
Yeah.
using that app. Or I
Right.
haven't been, so
Mhm.
that's where I get the lifestyle creep. I think it's
Yeah.
easier nowadays with our devices and our
Mhm.
phones, right? I'm
Mhm.
forever guilty of signing up for a free trial and it flips over if I'm
In
not
7
careful,
days. Yep.
right? So
Mhm.
I think
And
that's
that's
go.
key. And no, I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying. And even for me, this is and why I always say intentional and always
Mhm.
say the maintaining of the wellness. Because even now, right, I've
Mhm.
been talking about keeping my receipts and I've been doing a great job. And then I was 7 months behind on organizing my receipts. So in the 2-year process, we've gotten better. Now it's like, okay, let's make sure that we stay on the process, right? You have to keep drinking the water. You have to keep checking in with your body. These are things that you constantly have to do. And so for finances, um, I was trying to make like Friday the finance day because they both started with F, but it wasn't working with the schedule. Okay. So I need to pick a day that works. And I was thinking about it this week. It might be Wednesday. I'm working on changing my schedule again. And that's what we
Mhm.
do as entrepreneurs, right? As we build the systems and the workflow, what makes sense to block together so that it's actually done instead of you overwhelming yourself by making an unrealistic to-do
Right?
list that's it's not going to work at that time. Sometimes
Right?
it just needs to be moved. Yeah.
Total left turn and side note, and we
Yeah.
will come back to this, but I was
Mhm.
listening to somebody's productivity hack the other day, and
Mhm.
they said before you go to bed at night, write your list of 5 things that you need to do tomorrow. And then
Mhm.
it said when you get up in the morning, review the list and knock off the bottom two because it was unrealistic to have 5 things on your list. So I just
And
thought about that when you
you know, I like to be excellent and I do a lot, okay?
said,
I feel like I can't do 5 things, though. I feel like we get so much stuff done. Is it sustainable to always do that? Maybe not,
right.
but I say just like with health things and other things, see what feels good in your body. Right
Right.
now, I'm okay with working the schedule I'm working because I don't have children yet, because I do have the freedom to kinda choose and go hard in the paint right now and then slow down and maybe make it 3. But I
Mhm.
do usually have more than 3 on the
Me
list.
too. Me too. I
Yes.
just had to pull it up because I was like, "Ooh, that would be hard for
I
Shannon
like
and
that
I."
though.
Right? Well, and
And
then,
I
I kind
genuinely
of
have been
always
thinking
been
about it.
I think about like, okay, and then how do you tweak that system? Like, okay, is it 3 main ones and you have the subsets under it? Or like
But I think I like that. They'll probably say that's breaking the rule. They probably say if it's more
right?
than 3 items, it's more than 3. But I do like subsets, right?
Mhm.
Um, this is something I've been trying to work out, like the time part
Right.
of it. And that's something that I
Right.
think about with financial wellness. It's not
Mhm.
just the money, it's also the time that you spend, right? And thinking about how I spend my time, thinking about how to prioritize spending my time. And with working so many days, right now I work 5 days a week. I have 2 businesses. That means
Mhm.
technically I have a day for each business, and we know that all 24 hours aren't going to the business, right? So it's how many things are realistic to get done in a day, and
Mhm.
what do I want my workflow to be like? What should it look like if it's healthy? What do breaks
Right.
look like? You know, um, what do realistic timelines look like? Is really something that I've been working through.
I love that. Well,
Yeah.
and what a time to work on it because we're on
Mm.
a book deadline, a
Yes.
conference deadline.
Yeah.
Like, it's I said in Tuesday's class, because Sheila and I lead a class on Tuesdays for radical self and community care. And we always at the end of class, we write down one thing that we commit to ourselves for self-care and one thing
Mm,
we commit to for community care. So
mhm,
this week I wrote, I will sleep even though I'm on deadline. Because what I've realized is like in the past, I've cut my sleep short to
mhm.
like get those extra, and that doesn't serve like
Anybody. Yeah.
no, because you, especially in the process of writing a book, doing a conference, like it's a long-term thing. It's not like a short-term thing because we're going to be going hard until the end of October.
Mhm,
So you can't do that without sleep, right?
mhm. And
Right.
I think about it being a marathon, right? Like
Mhm.
Nipsey Hussle said, and it's so true because it has to be sustainable. I'm like, "Okay, if I put something down, what do I put down? Do I put Shaylo Glow
Mhm.
down?" It's
Mhm.
amazing. Am I supposed to be out here dry? Can't do it. Okay. Then I think about the book and the women connected in wisdom. And we have to talk about the dimensions of wellness. It's not just about
Right.
physical, it's also about finance. It's also about occupations and all
Mhm.
these things that affect us. And I love the resources and stories and everything that we share with the ladies. Those are necessary. So I don't want to put
Right.
that down,
Right.
So I love that I will sleep even though I'm on deadline.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
the
gonna pull
listeners
us.
know
Yes, go ahead.
we do not have an extra expert today. Christine is actually going to be our financial expert since hers is one of our chapters in our book coming up. So if you're waiting for us to be excited about somebody else, today we are excited about each other.
Which still
Yes.
cracks me up that that ends up being the chapter I wrote. But, I was holding back since we do this show and
Yeah.
we have been doing this show. We're on episode 80 today, y'all.
Ooh,
And
ooh.
we've been studying this and doing this work for years now. I was holding back to write the chapter that needed to be written, depending
Mhm.
on what other experts were lifted up. And it still cracks me up that that was that one. But
Yeah.
so today we're
Mhm.
talking about a brand new article that was written by Sharon Epperson called Worried You're Mismanaging Your Money. Give
Mhm.
yourself a financial checkup in 7 simple steps. Because, one of the things I truly believe after years of being a coach and being a social worker and helping folks out is
Mhm.
go back to basics.
Mhm.
Like if things are out of whack, if you are feeling uncomfortable or out of balance or stressed out, go back to basics. So when I'm talking with clients, I mean, I even go back, I look at how are you eating, how are you sleeping, and are you moving your body, right?
Mhm.
And I think that applies to financial wellness just as well as anything else
Mhm.
because when our bodies have two states. They have the two our nervous systems, right? We have
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
parasympathetic and our sympathetic. And if we are in fight or flight, which a lot of times when finances come up, when if we are stressed and we are in that fight, I got to fight to get the money or I'm running from bill collectors or I'm running,
Mhm.
we're in a state of heightened anxiety. And then that affects all the rest of our wellness, all of it. And so, how can we be in our bodies, be calm, even if we're not in a great financial position, right? Like,
Mhm.
how can we take a deep breath and get support? Because,
Yeah.
we talk about it all the time on the show, but, hashtag partnership power. And the third step of self care is
Mhm.
reaching out for support if you need it.
Mhm.
And so that's why this article just called my attention today because it was back to the basics and it's
Yeah.
also the call that doesn't matter how much money you have, we're in a recession, we are experiencing inflation in the United States. And so let's do a checkup, right? So number 3 of the 7 in this article was use only one credit card.
Mhm.
Get organized so that you have a better handle on what you're spending. If you have all of your transactions in one place, it will be easier to keep better track of your spending. Have one credit card in your wallet to swipe at the store or to use for online purchases. And if you use a digital wallet like Apple Pay or Google Wallet, use that same card for everything you buy. That just
Mhm.
makes sense to me.
Yeah, I really like
Yeah.
that. I don't have a credit card right now, and I do plan on getting one. I'm sure I'll get one in the future to build business credit and
Mhm.
different things like that. We'll see what happens. Um, But I don't even have a credit card, but
Mhm.
doing it through one account absolutely helps me. I do it through a living expenses account for my personal expenses because again, if you guys have been listening, you know I like to separate my accounts. So the living expenses for my stuff and then I move even if I buy something for myself. Today I got myself some yellow roses. I'm gonna move that.
Aw.
I want to see a little sunlight.
Right.
Um, and I'm gonna move that from my money, but it's still gonna go through the living expenses and then go out. For the business, I do it through the operations. So the money comes
Right.
in the income and then it goes out of the operations account.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, and I just want to say, like, for years, Joe and I didn't do credit cards because we
Yeah.
just weren't really that great at them. But I
Mhm.
will tell you, especially if you live in the United States and you ever want to buy a home, you have to have a credit card. When we
Mhm.
went to get approved for our home loan, even though we were top notch
Yeah.
leasing, we were always on time, like, and our mortgage was going to be less than we were paying in lease because
Mhm.
we didn't have a credit card. In order to get approved for our home loan, it was, I joke about this all the time. The difference was a $250 Old Navy card and a $500 Visa card. It
Mhm.
was like same income,
Mhm.
same credit history, same, but because we weren't playing the game of the
Mhm.
credit cards,
Mhm.
that that's what we had to do to get it approved. And then we shut them down because we're not big fans of credit cards because we
Right.
like to we like to live on what we have. But
Yeah.
we have one now for emergencies. To
Mhm.
keep the credit score higher because it is part of the game of the credit score.
Right.
And also for emergencies.
Mhm.
So yeah, but we like to use our same debit credit card one for the I like that. I like her advice on that
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it
me
really
too.
does make my budgeting easier because then
Mhm.
there's programs that I can just load it into.
Absolutely.
All right, so talking about credit cards on number 4, she says set limits and alerts on the cards. The limit for purchases on a debit card can vary from a couple of hundred to a couple of $1,000s a day. The bank generally sets that limit, but you can ask for a lower limit if you think that will help you rein in
Mm,
your spending. Some credit cards will also let you set your own spending limits. You can also sign up for alerts like email or text messages or push notifications to let you know when you've made a purchase over a certain amount. I love that. Like, that's just
yeah.
practical,
I had never thought about lowering the limit. I always think about raising the limit, you know?
right?
That's a good idea, though, if we wanna
Right?
control the flow of it, yeah.
Well, and here's the reality, y'all. Everybody has different levels of self control. I mean, if you need that extra support, put it in
Mhm.
there.
And the day I spent $600 at Target and didn't buy any shoes when that's what I maybe I needed a limit. Maybe I needed that $300 cash withdrawal limit to
Ah,
stop me.
what is a place? Like, let's just, I'm going to ask you, and then we're going to
Mhm,
ask our listeners. If you're listening and you want to put a comment in or on social
mhm.
media later, you can do it. But what is a store that tempts you or that you go over your limit without even like that you walk into and you think, oh, I'm only spending this amount of money, and you walk out and go, how did that happen? I know my number one,
What's your number 1 right now?
Costco.
Mm,
It is almost impossible to get out of that store for what I plan on. Yeah. Especially if
spending.
I'm there in person. If I Instacart it, I will tell
Mhm,
y'all one of my tricks is I Instacart things. Because
mm,
yes, I pay the driver and all that, but
mm,
I spend less on that than on my impulse shopping, especially if it's
mm.
at a store like Target or Costco.
I don't I don't know if I have a store right now, to be honest with you. I've gotten really good at the rule or the game of, "Let me see if I can wait 1 more day to buy it,"
Ooh, tell our
you know?
listeners about that.
Yeah. Okay, so for example, I had this cord in the car, right, that was charging my phone, and I would have replaced it probably like 2 years ago, and I just threw it away the other day because it was still charging, so it didn't look brand new. I wasn't gonna get electrocuted or anything like that, but it looked a little
Safety
damaged,
first.
little right, of course. Looked a little damaged, but it wouldn't kill me to keep it, and I waited a whole 2 years, and then I just had another one, so I had another cord, didn't even need to buy one. That one stopped working. Now I need to buy one. But as far as the priority of when to spend the money, 2 years ago, COVID had just happened. I had just moved out of my apartment. All this stuff was going on, you know.
Right.
The a phone charger in the car is not priority
Wasn't a
right now.
priority.
Exactly. So now I have more than enough space to be able to buy a charger. And so I
I
play that
love that.
game.
I love
Mhm.
that game. If you could wait one more day.
Mhm.
That just I also that just calls my nanny, my paternal grandmother, right?
Mhm.
She was a depression baby and she
Mhm.
loved stretching things, right?
Mhm.
I was thinking about her this week because I have a I usually use like a moisturizer, tinted moisturizer
Mhm.
with sunscreen on it
Mhm.
is my base of my makeup. And you know how when you and this one has like a pump on top
Yeah.
and it'll quit pumping.
Mhm.
And I was was like, am I going to tell the story or not? Because it's a little embarrassing how frugal I am sometimes. But I was like, I'm out. Well, part of it was, can you wait one more day? Because I
Mhm.
was in a hurry and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have time to go to the store, but I just flipped it upside down, cut it off. And there's been like 3 or 4 more days of stuff in there that, I would have just thrown away. And I was thinking about that this morning when I used it, and it really is the last day I've got to go to the store. But I was thinking about my nanny and how
Yeah.
she taught us about using everything to the last job and like conservation in some ways. Like
Mhm.
she did it out of a place of lack and coming from that generation that knew a lot of hardships during the Great Depression. But I think there's some lessons when you're in balance about that are good lessons. Like even today, like how far can you stretch something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's any shame because again, we're letting go of shame and guilt, right? So I don't think there's any shame in you having your dollars work for you, circulating dollars in the economy,
Mhm.
and having somebody go get your food for you because you save more money. Right?
Right?
And there's nothing wrong with you cutting the bottom of the bottle off because guess what? You paid for all of that product. So why are we throwing
I
pennies,
was
quarters in the
just
trash?
cracking
Mm-mm.
myself up. No.
Yeah, go ahead and
It
use
was
all of it.
cute. And I was also
Yeah.
thinking about Shayla Glow and being in
Mhm.
those gorgeous glass bottles and that you can see. Like, I mean, I use every drop of my
Yeah,
Shayla Glow
mine is
too,
running out.
but you can see it, right? Like,
Yes.
you're like, okay, I know how much I have left, which I really
Yeah,
appreciate. All right,
yeah.
back to the article. We
Okay.
got, we're on number 5, y'all.
Okay.
5, have a mix of stocks, bonds, and cash. You should
Mm,
have a mix of stocks, bonds, and cash. An adequate emergency fund and cash reserves to cover living expenses is critical. Which let's just pause there. That's coming from a place of privilege. Let's just name it. That's coming from a place of economic privilege.
which part is the stocks and bonds or the having extra
Yes,
cash?
I think stocks, bonds, and cash. I mean,
Okay.
it's a yes. I think it's an ideal we want to stretch for, but I don't know the latest statistics. We should look them up. But it
Mhm.
was like 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck.
I think and again, updated, most
Hmm.
recent research is always what we wanna base it off of, but I had 78%. That was before the pandemic, and we needed to look it up.
Whew.
So right now, I'll be interested, but I will also say it's not necessarily always because it's not possible. Some
Right.
situations we know, hey, this
Right.
wage that you're getting for the hours that you're working is not stretching as far as
Hmm.
everything that you need for the medicine for your kids or things like that are
Hmm.
understandable. But if we're spending money every day before we get home and then saying that it's not realistic
Yeah.
because of how much we make, it's not how much you make, it's how you spend what we get.
That makes me think of the Budgetnista because,
Hmm.
she was talking about buying 2 houses or 2 properties,
On a
and at
teacher's
the time,
salary.
sh on it like and she was making, like, $45,000 a year at that time, or, like, impressive stuff.
Hmm.
But, yeah,
Hmm.
so what almost all financial experts want you to do
Yeah.
is to cover living expenses for 3 months if you could. So, yeah, your short-term savings. It also says you need to have a mix of stocks and bonds to make sure your long-term savings keeps up with inflation.
Hmm.
So, and y'all, we are not financial experts on this show.
Mm-mm.
So we always recommend talking to your financial expert or your consultant and checking in with them.
Yeah.
And because there are women that we're connected to, and we can give some links on those that are the financial experts that are like, yep, they can help you manage your money.
Right.
So, and she goes on to talk in the article about a mix of your amount of risk or what you are allowed to take, like what
Right.
you're willing to take, and that all
Mhm.
also depends on what age are you, what stage are you, are
Yeah,
you paying for kids' college, are you getting
right.
ready for retirement, where are you in your work life?
Yes.
Uh, yeah,
Did you just have a baby? That's completely different.
right.
Yeah.
Whoo, yeah, because
Yeah.
we had our babies when we graduated from college, and we were buying diapers. Like we weren't out drinking every night. We were buying
Right.
diapers.
Right.
um, yeah. Okay. Number 6, check
Mm,
out online investment tools. You can
mm,
consult online investment tools offered by major brokerage firms as well as nonprofit organizations, which I talk about in my chapter in the book and give a link to some basic 101 classes. And we can put those links in our show notes. And if you have a representative from your employer's retirement plan, if one is offered, you can also talk to them. There's a
mhm.
lot. I mean, the cool news is the times we live in, there's a lot of resources that are free that you can look up and check out. And I'm a huge fan, y'all, of YouTube in it. If you have a question, Google or YouTube it and see what's out there, right?
Yes.
About how to do things, even simple things like how to make a budget, how
Mhm.
to, there's going to be people that can help you with this. And there's people you can hire, but there's a lot of people that do content for free
Yeah.
around this area.
Yeah.
All right, number 7. Are you
Hmm.
ready? Work with a
Yes.
financial advisor. A financial planner can help you set up a strategy that will be able to weather market volatility and
Mhm.
still reach your goals of having money divided between different types of assets. And she gives a list of certified financial planners.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think
It's important.
it's good stuff, right?
Yeah, and my goal, I was watching this video yesterday on Instagram, and it was putting Grant Cardone and Dave Ramsey against each other, right? Dave
Ooh.
Ramsey believes that all debt is bad. Grant Cardone understands that you need to use good debt in order to build
Mm.
wealth, right? And so that's the conversation that people have. And so I think it's interesting the way that again, I've gotten information from different places, and I kind of do a mix of um, the different steps. So I am going through the Dave Ramsey financial peace steps right now, even though I do plan on possibly using good debt as a strategy to build wealth, right? So right now on the Dave Ramsey financial peace steps, he says to have 3 to 6 months saved. So I like 3 months as a minimum for what you're going to have put to the side for your expenses. 6 months, of course, is a buffer because with inflation, just like Grant Cardone says, it's going to take more time and more money than you think. So before, if I would have based my gas budget off of what it was when I bought the car, I would be out of money and out of luck, you know? So for me, it points to the yearly review, points to reconsidering how much money I'm making. You know, it doesn't have to be a pressure, but now it's okay. I can no longer make $1,500 a month. I need to make $4,000 a month. What does that look like? What am I going to do? And, or how can I make my money work for me? And when she talks about the stocks and bonds, that's what I think about. It's having my money in different places, right? If something happens, you need to get a new set of tires or something happens with your transmission, we've got to have something liquid. You have to have cash that you can access without having to call other people, ideally, right? But then
Well,
you
or a
also,
backup credit card like we talked about
right.
too. Yeah.
Right, but even that for me, the backup credit card, the way I wanna use it as a tool is to
Mhm.
not have the interest make it so that I pay more money, right? So if
Right.
I spend $2,000, I don't wanna spend $2,500. I wanna spend $2,000. And a lot of times when you use it in that emergency situation is when it's almost guaranteed to sit over
Mhm.
there longer than you thought it would, and now you're spending more money. I would rather just wait and pay a $40 late fee or whatever it was, whatever makes the most sense to pay the least amount of money. Let's say that,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
again, in order to stay ahead of it, expecting it to take more money, which is why as a woman, I always champion the ladies to charge what you think you're worth, or excuse me, charge what you're worth, right? Charge the money that you need to make it sustainable instead of trying to be nice. And now we're not realistic with the money that we need to take care of the inflated prices of everything. And now we're stressed and not showing up in our community and can't show up for ourselves because we didn't really have anything to base our expectations off of. We got to have realistic expectations. And so that's what I think about when I hear this stuff. And then for the stocks and the bonds, I think about just making sure that if something happens to one, you still have another backup plan, and also making sure that your money's working for you, right? Because that's another way that you make money. We want to make sure that it's not just decreasing in value or only getting 3% back. These credit cards that give money back, 3%, thank you for something back. I appreciate it, but that interest on that credit card is 28.99%. So, it's a big difference.
Right? And reading the fine print,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Reading the fine print, and if you don't know or have questions, getting a buddy to help you with it,
Right. Yeah,
right? I
and
think
that's
that's
what
the
I've
thing.
needed. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
that's what I've needed to see, and even for me, it's the social support on, should I stay at this job? Right? It was
Mhm.
a lot to ask. We're on the podcast. We have this podcast for a reason, right? So I just got out of the Topgolf training. Salary
Mhm.
manager training. Should I really move?
Mhm.
You know, and so I'm looking at the finances, looking at the goals, thinking about the occupational wellness and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, it makes
Mhm.
sense. Let's go ahead and jump, you know?
Mhm.
But I did that looking at the goals, seeing my plans for the timeline when I wanted to have 6 months of expenses saved, and going to Papado helps me do that faster. And so that's
You
I
are
made it
so
based off
good
of
at
her.
that. I just want to honor you and lift you up about that.
At
Like
what?
you know your numbers,
Mm,
you have a plan and you stick to it,
thank
right? I
you.
know you have to wiggle sometimes because
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
but the fact that you are looking at that and knowing that when I was your age,
Mhm.
no clue. No
Yes,
clue. I mean,
thank
still,
you.
I struggle with having a clue around
Very.
it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's I think we've had this discussion before on here how financial training and personal finances and things
yeah.
like this is something we need to be teaching our kids and our young people from the very beginning.
Mhm,
Like, I can't remember what book I was reading that talks about people that are upper class. They have these discussions from the time they're little bitty with
mm,
their kids. And middle class and lower class folks don't. They don't
mhm,
talk about money. They don't. And then it perpetuates the cycle of not knowing or understanding. Because it
Absolutely.
really is like it's a system and it's a game. And
Mhm.
once you can figure it out, once you know it or learn it, you have a better chance at it. But if you, it's like going into a board game and not knowing the rules, right?
Literally. Yes. I heard some women speaking at, Topgolf, and she was talking about having kids. She's like, "I didn't know that you could get all this money." She had, like, 3 kids, and she had just found out having a baby, so things like that is making sure that you know we're connected so you can maximize the
Right.
help that you can get if
Tax
that's what you need,
benefits.
all of that,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well,
and
it's
that's what
always so fascinating to me. And I
Mhm,
think the thing that is fascinating for me is how quick it changes, but
mhm,
how many resources are available to check it out too. Right? Like things are, I mean, life has changed, right? That's the only constant is things are going to change.
right.
But just that we have access to these resources at our fingertips. So I think that helps us to be well around it.
Yeah, and for me, I think about again, it's money as a tool, right? So money is not always in the
Mhm.
front of the picture. It's there because that's what we're talking about. But
Mhm.
why, right? When you say, "Oh, you're amazing at um, being intentional about it," that's
Mhm.
not just because of money, and that's important. Of course, to be wealthy, all this stuff is great. But it was my mom passing away, and I had to go back 2 days later, back to work.
Mm.
I want more time. Linda's
Mhm.
anniversary is coming up of her 1 year. And when I think about Linda's story, it's, corporate chick, God's girl, worked at Aetna for 30 years and had less time than I would have wanted her to for herself.
Mhm.
And in less than
Mhm.
about 5 years, she was gone.
Mm.
So it's the time for myself. It's not just, oh yeah, all this stuff. It's no, I need to make sure that if somebody passes away, I can take however long I feel like I need. When I have kids, I want to take however long I feel like I need and not ask somebody for a Thursday night. I don't want to do that.
Right?
Mm-mm.
Well, and you said that I saw a meme or something this week that said
Yeah.
it's really not the money that you want, it's the
Hmm.
freedom that you want.
Hmm.
It's the freedom.
Yeah.
So whether that's seeking the freedom through having extra money,
Hmm.
or if it's a change in your lifestyle.
Right.
Like I mean, if it's the freedom that you're seeking, how can we get that freedom?
Yeah. And
Right?
that's my biggest thing with the conversation of the millennials, right? And how we
Mhm.
jump. They're saying we jump jobs. I hope that we're doing it to be healthier each time, right?
Mhm.
Some of it might not be that. And so for that part of the possibility, that's my biggest thing is let's be intentional about why we're moving. Are we
Mhm.
moving because it betters the company, it betters what we're doing, it betters our goals, or just because we're not voicing what we need in that space, and so we're not getting it. Those are two different
Mhm.
things. Um, so yeah, being intentional about it so you can build the life and the freedom that you want. What does that look like? There's so many different ways to get it. And that's what I love about women connected in wisdom right now. Before, and we talk about this in the book, right? How are your parents going to teach you things that they don't know?
Right?
Before, the libraries were separate. You and I would not be sitting here at this table at the same library reading
Right?
about financial wellness, right? And so now that we have access to resources and YouTube University that helped me get my new labels that are coming out and all this stuff this week. Now what do you do with it? And really with finances, it's what's the right first step, right? Um,
Right.
Trump, that his parents gave him this money for a seed, his first step was different than my first step when I had
Mhm.
to stop working during COVID and I had
Mhm.
to move out of my apartment.
Mhm.
N- His first step was right for him and where he was trying to go. My first step was right for me where I was trying to go. And it's important to be mindful of the strategy depending on where you are, if you are a mom, if you aren't a mom, because I think that part and the unrealistic expectations that we have sometimes around that is what either sets us up for success in the sustainability or it sets us up to be um, possibly in the victim mentality like we talked about earlier, right? Or it's not realistic because we weren't coming from the right place. We weren't using the right strategy and something that was tailored to our specific situation.
I completely agree with you. Yeah,
Yeah,
what's the next incremental step? Because you can't do
exactly.
it all, right? And say you're digging out of a hole or you're digging out of a problem situation,
Yeah.
you may want to get some free counseling and support around it to just really identify. And in Interplay, we have a thing where we talk about incremental steps, where we lay out the steps. So say there were 5 steps that needed to happen, and
Mhm.
then we choose, okay, what's the number one thing? And then we go down in that number one thing, what are the 3 steps under that?
Mm,
And then just start with the first step, right? Um, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. Not just financial wellness, but any of the other, if you're coming from behind or, we don't want to use that language, but if you're feeling overwhelmed about it, let's say it
yeah,
that way, then let's break it down into incremental steps
right.
and go from there. I'm
Yeah.
loving this discussion, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think it's so important. We can beat ourselves up so much. Oh, I'm an adult. I'm a certain age. I should know this. But when we look at history, women were not having, we talk about credit cards. Women weren't having credit cards 50 years ago. That's not
Right?
that long ago. When we talk
Right.
about the history of the world, so of course there's some learning in some things that are going to feel uncomfortable. And that's why it's so important to have this space where we can say, hey, I struggle with that too. Hey, what store do you go to and spend all your money that you're not
Right?
supposed to spend? And it's like, okay, this is a thing. It's not just me. So,
Right? I
yeah, it
love that.
helps.
Well,
Yeah.
when you think about today, when you think about financial wellness, what do you think about your wisdom in action?
Mm. Let's see. I liked what you said about, where did I put it? And maybe it's just an affirmation that I make. I like when you said, I will sleep even though I'm on deadline. So for finances, I think I'm feeling like a breathe and flow. Hashtag breathe and flow. And I like to
Mm.
explain it because flow for cash flow, right? Because cash flow is one of the parts of the BI triangle for a business. And that again is from Robert Kiyosaki, right? The different parts are the legal, the product, communication, and then the cash flow. So as we set up this second business, making sure that my cash is flowing the right way, that I'm mindful of it, intentional about it, and that I know where everything is and that it's organized. And then breathe. I always think about when I went skydiving for my birthday, and they said in the training, when you feel like you can't breathe, remember that you can. And so just breathing and flowing with the cash flow and sticking to the plan is what I'm working on this week.
Mm. I love that. And did I know you had gone skydiving for your birthday?
I don't
What
know.
age were you when you did that?
Oh, all the 20s are all jumbled up now. Um, Maybe 24. I think that was the year I went to the Beyonce concert. I went to the Beyonce concert and then went skydiving.
What? Like,
I spent
that's
too
an
much.
incredible year. That
Yes,
is
it
an
was amazing.
incredible year.
And then the next year I
Um,
went to Costa Rica.
oh,
Yes,
super fun, my
just
friend.
celebrating myself.
So you may not know this about me, but
What?
when I was 18, I went
Mhm.
skydiving.
No, I do, and
So,
your aunt
because
took
my
you,
aunt,
so
my
you're,
aunt
yep.
Joan, shout out
Mhm.
to Aunt Joan. She was a
Yes.
master jump master, and at that time taught people how to jump out of airplanes.
Mhm.
So
I
we're
think
at
we had
the
talked about it.
end of the show where I would tell that whole story. But yeah, I went skydiving twice and I love, oh my gosh, one of the best things I ever did.
Mm.
Eleanor is listening and says, can you talk about your summit? Oh,
Oh,
Eleanor, thanks for that
great
question.
question.
And actually, we decided very clearly today that it is going to be, it's a virtual conference
Yes.
because we were talking about the difference. I don't know why I'm going towards a really fake bad British accent at this moment when I start talking about the difference between conference and summit. I don't know what's happening. Let me take a deep breath, get back here in Georgia. That we're doing a virtual conference, and that
Yes.
virtual conference is coming up at the end of October. Do
The
you want to give them our
25th to the
specific
28th.
dates? Yep.
Yes, the 25th to the 28th, starting at 9 AM.
And we are going to be launching that website hopefully by the end of this week, y'all. And we will put that in our show notes and we will get y'all all the information. It's going to be a free virtual conference, and we are going to have at least 20 incredible speakers and women that are connected in wisdom talking about the different 8 dimensions of wellness. And
Yes.
we are also yeah, and there is going to be so the conference is free, and then there's going to be an opportunity that if you want to purchase the downloads
Replays.
of all the talks and freebies and workbooks and things like that, that
Yeah.
you're going to have that opportunity. That's what we're working on launching, and whoo, y'all, it's good. We're
Yes.
excited, and it's a lot.
Yes, yes, and if you would like to be part of it, if you've been listening for all 80 episodes, you and your business would love to be a sponsor, we do have the opportunity to be connected, and those spots are filling up. Again, we do
Oh,
have a list of authors. We have 18 authors, so we wanna make sure that the panelists and the sponsors get the opportunity to speak, but if you would like to be one of them, reach out. We would love to have you.
I'll put that in the show notes about a
Yeah.
way that you can be a sponsor on that show. Yeah, Global Hybrid Publishing is one of our sponsors.
Yes, the Mermaid's Garden.
Is
Yes,
one of
for
our
our
sponsors.
environmental
Yeah.
wellness. So we're chugging along, getting ready for you guys. And yeah, 4 days, 2 dimensions on each. So once we release it, get your dimension that you're interested in working on. Tell your friends about it so they can come get plugged into our resources and our experts.
And we're also working on a gift bag too, because
Ooh,
we love all that stuff.
yeah. Love a little glow. Love some inner ally cards or something,
Little
we'll figure it out.
Shalo glow. Like,
Yeah.
we got all kinds of goodies coming y'all's way this fall. It's going to be
Yes.
super fun. Thanks for that question, Eleanor.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much again for joining us for 80 episodes of Women Connected in Wisdom.
What?
Yes.
You look great for 80, my friend.
Thank you. It's the moisturizer. Oh, we will see you guys back here live at 5 next week. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. See you
See you
soon.
soon.